There are strange things out there that seem to have no explanation. Sometimes they are conjured up by the darkest corners of our subconscious, but on occasion they dwell beyond the confines of our imagination. They may come from another realm, or out of the sky, or from beyond the grave. Once they set foot into our world, the line between dreams and reality becomes unclear. It's our job to investigate these reports and compile the Virginia Paranormal Case Files.
I was on this couch one night, and I think it was his couch, and I tell you, it's kind of slipped. A lot of it slips away from me. I tell them, but I had a light blanket over, and the blanket lifted about 12, 16 inches off me, and then it stayed, and I knocked it down. I felt like somebody grabbed my ankle. Something grabbed my ankle.
And that was right here on the couch?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I've been. My son said it's a dream, imagination. I was in the other night, and I got off I was on this couch, and my head was that way, and I got up to turn, and somebody tapped me on my back, or whatever. I had a tap on my back, a very distinct tap, 5 or 6 times. When I turned over, I turned around and looked, I thought it was, I ran rooms out. I said, "Chip, is that you?" And then I realized no one could be behind the couch. And I was in that room, and I had tapping again on my back, 4, 5, 6 taps. And I thought it was somebody in there. There's been quite a few things I can't remember though. Yeah. They slipped. But I'm wide awake. I'm not dreaming. I'm wide awake. But,
how long has this been going on for?
It's probably a year now, right? 3, yeah.
I'd say at least.
Yeah, about a year.
When did you move in?
74, right? It's 74.
So you've been living here for a while, and it just started about a year or 2 ago?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Now, was there anything that you can remember around that time that might have happened, a significant life change?
No. Well, I lost my wife 8 years ago, right? And my grandson, 5 years ago. And this lady that I met after my wife passed away, we were together for about 4 or 5 years, and she passed away. And my wife passed away in the back bedroom, and Dee passed away in my den. She was a really unique lady, and she had lung cancer.
Mm-hmm. I'm sorry to hear that.
And I saw her take her last breath, and my wife also. And then Brandon, right after my wife, my grandson.
Any objects that were brought into the house around that time, like second-hand type objects? Anything that might have come from a garage sale or a thrift shop, or
a lot of that
brings lots of things here.
That's true. Ed brings tons of stuff here. That's a good point.
Yeah. I rent rooms out, and this one gentleman's been with me for about 2 years, right? 2.5 years. He would bring me gifts all the time.
Have you heard any voices, any disembodied voices, any strange sounds?
Well, I hear them all the time, walking around up the steps. If that's, and I'll call out, "Chip, is that you?" or whatever, and I hear it all the time. And last night, in fact, I heard a loud voice last night. It was just like a hay, something like that,
Right. Where was that coming from? Like which direction?
I said, where was I last night? I sleep all over. Sleep back room, this dead and here.
Right.
Yeah, stand up in the corner sometime. I sleep everywhere. I said last night. Why did I sleep last night? Yeah, it was in there. It was in there, in the den. I heard like someone speaking to me, and I called. I thought it was Chip, one of my roommates here.
So we had the investigators go ahead and do a walkthrough of the location without having any prior knowledge as to the activity that's going on here. So we're going to get some of the feedback from them and see if they picked up on anything strange or unusual with inside the house.
When we walked into the house, there wasn't any immediate feelings at the very beginning of the house. It was only when I think we both walked into the back rooms. If you go through into off to the right, there's like a little living room back there that has a lot of nautical things in it. And that's where I started to kind of get a little bit of a strange feeling. But it wasn't until you walked up those steps into what I suppose is probably a glassed-in porch. It was
Probably
a porch
was.
at one time that's been converted into some sort of bedroom. That was where we had the creepiest feelings back there.
Yes.
And at first it was sort of a subtle feeling, just kind of a heaviness or a difference in the energy that was back there. But we walked out, walked through the rest of that house, walked back to that area. And as Megan and I were both standing in there, she turned and looked at me and I looked at her because there was some sort of sudden shift of energy in that place. And all of a sudden it started feeling like really bad, like a very, very heavy feeling.
You wanted to sit down. You
Yeah.
wanted to fall down or something. I mean, it was
Right. It made you
definitely
very
a shift.
Yeah, made you very dizzy. Very dizzy.
Uneasy.
Yeah. Now my feeling is that there's something to do with the land on this property. There's something with the property or a nearby property. I don't know that it's necessarily anything attached to something in the house. If something is attached to anything in that house, it's the car sitting in the garage out there. But I would say this is probably some sort of female spirit. She's angry. She doesn't like the man that lives here. There's something, she's very unhappy with the man. And it could be that they're using the mirror in the corner as sort of a portal to come through. There's a stand-up mirror, kind of a freestanding mirror in the corner of that bedroom. That seems, because I was looking at that mirror when there was a sudden shift in the energy. So,
I kept getting drawn to that. Just over to the mirror.
yeah,
Different feeling.
yeah.
I got my recorder, but I didn't turn it on. I'll see what you get.
The initial sweep, we're starting at about 0.7 is the highest that I've seen it milligauss, and the temperature is around 60.5. You have 1.4 in yours. So we can, see, jump
went
up
way
to
up.
19.
It's pretty low. The readings are pretty low right now.
Mine's consistently been at that. Unless you get near the TV or anything.
Yeah.
You gotta watch your head coming down drop through there.
Yeah, that's true.
So it's only reading a 1.1, 1.3 in here.
So, according to some skeptics, because that microwave is on now, we might get a spirit voice. Because now,
That's a
now
good
some
point.
radio
Has waves,
frequencies are
yeah.
going through, we might get something.
That's true. We gotta
So
go
we'll
outside
see.
and review that.
Mhm.
Yeah. It is interesting going with some of the walkthroughs and some of the reports. Now, what's interesting about this case is this gentleman, he said he lived here since 1975, I believe it was. So he's lived here for several years, and this activity just kicked up about a little over a year ago. So it seems like it must have been something that was brought into the house. So in the interview, I asked him, have there been a lot of second-hand items or any second-hand items that have been brought into the house? And supposedly there's been a lot. One of the gentlemen always brings him something that is second-hand and gives it to him. So he doesn't remember exactly what was brought in the house around that time. Could be a number of things. So we may be looking for an object. But another interesting thing involving the woman's spirit. Now, if there's a woman's spirit here, it's not going to be one that's aggressive towards him, because the two women that died here, one was his wife, and one was the woman that he was involved with after she passed away. Now his wife, it's been about 8 years since she passed away, so it doesn't kind of line up with the time frame when things started happening, but who knows how long it could take a spirit to return to a location or to start to manifest. And she did pass away in that back bedroom where some of you have talked about, I think it was Megan and Linda talked about, feeling they're more of a presence than some of the other rooms. So perhaps that back bedroom should be our starting point. We go in there and we can do a spirit box session back there. See if there's anything interesting that comes through, anything that might give us answers. We're probably looking for the spirit of a woman or something that is attached to an object. And what object would that be? So we came back here to the back bedroom, and this is where we're going to start with the spirit box session. Now, one thing we brought in with this is a thermal pad. And this thermal pad, it makes it possible for something to leave an imprint. If we can convince anything that may be here, one of the things is that he has been touched. If we can convince something to touch this pad, it should be able to pick up that print. Well, the spirit box, we are going to hook a splitter into it because we want to eliminate, like we talked about earlier, that audio pareidolia. So we're going to hook a splitter into it. The splitter is going to go from the spirit box to the speaker so that the camera and the voice recorder can pick up the audio coming through the speaker. The other end is going to go through these headphones to which Linda will be listening to. And these are supposed to be some pretty good noise canceling headphones. Trying these for the first time. The purpose in this is so that she doesn't hear the questions. A lot of times if you hear the question, your mind's going to kind of put together an expected response out of that nonsense noise that's coming through this speaker. So that way, if she hears a direct response to one of the questions we ask, she's in no way biased by that question. We know she's actually hearing that response. If we hear it too, the camera picks it up, all the better. If we don't hear it and she hears it, vice versa, then we kind of have to question it. But our goal is to hit this for 5 to 8 minutes, and then we're going to go out to the car, to our makeshift base station, and analyze the audio right here on the spot while the next team comes in and does another spirit box session for 5 to 10 minutes. That way we can have an idea of what's going on before we even leave the location and have to go back and do an evidence review. All right, I'm Jeff. I'm Will. And this is Linda over here with these headphones on. Linda is only going to be able to hear you if you talk through that little device that's on the bed there. Now, what that is called a spirit box. And we'd like to know if you could use that to communicate with us. Could you tell us your name?
Do you know anyone that lives here?
Are you a male or a female? Are there any objects in this house that you're drawn to?
if you are here, there's a few ways that you can communicate with us. You can communicate in this. You can talk into it. We can be able to hear you. You can communicate into the sound box and be able to make a word. You can be able to touch the thermal pad so we can see that you're here. And you can be able to touch any one of these machines over here to change the temperature or to change the energy around it. Just let us know that you're here.
Was this your bedroom? We've heard that somebody has been tapping him, and we're wondering if you're trying to get his attention. And if so, for what reason?
Do you know what it is that I'm holding in my hand? What is this? Okay. This is Will.
This is Tanya.
I'm Megan.
I'm gonna go ahead and change the temperature gauge.
There you go.
Okay. Do we have? I'm gonna grab the temperature gauge that's in here and see what's affecting that.
You turn it up.
Yeah, it's on.
So what I'm gonna do now is
Start the session.
this temperature gauge. I want to see what the temperature is changing to, so I'm gonna put this right next to it. So down here on the ground, next to the temperature sensor, it's reading 67.5 degrees. So we'll see what temperature change makes that temperature control go off.
This is Saturday, January 17th. We're starting the session. So we're here to ask if there's anybody in this room with us. Would you be so kind as to speak with us? You can speak through this device right here or the spirit box.
So it jumped up a half degree, it jumped up to 68 degrees Fahrenheit, got a little bit warmer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to reset the temperature. It only went up to +1, so it seems like that's a half degree difference.
So we'd just like to know if you would speak with us. We'd like to ask if you could tell us your name.
I'm going to turn this up a little bit,
Okay.
because I can hear some stuff coming through. Now's your chance to talk to us. We're here to listen to you. So if there's anyone here, can you please talk into that for me? The temperature gauge is staying exactly the same at 68.3.
Is there something that's keeping you here? Is there something that you want someone to know? This device right here has a light on it. You can reach out and touch it, make the light go up. That way we know you're also in the room with us. Feel free to do that anytime you like. Could you clarify for us if you're male or female? If you're female, could you reach out and touch this device with the light on it? Make it go as red as possible. You're male, could you reach out and touch this light? Make it go as red as possible. That's a temperature gauge.
You know what I find odd is it does that at the most random times, and it doesn't. I don't know, like it doesn't do that necessarily when the temperature changes. It sort of does it almost at random, but it's not consistent.
I'm wondering, like, when I'm asking it to turn it as red as possible, if that is an easier device to manipulate than this.
Yeah. I do notice how we have the heat going over here. We also have the front door open, so there's constantly cold air passing through here. The temperature gauge is changing quite a bit.
What brings you to this home? Is there someone here you're trying to communicate with?
We came outside, we left the thermal pad in the back room. Tanya and Megan and Will went in and they did another spirit box session down in the den. So we're going to go back in, we're going to check that thermal pad. I guess while we do that, maybe, Will, are you going to listen to that audio from the first time we were in there?
Yeah.
And then when we come back, we'll do a quick debrief on that, see if you picked up anything that we might have missed. When you were listening to the headset, did you really hear much? I heard you say maybe 2 words, and one was burden.
Right.
But that didn't seem related
Yeah.
to anything we were asking.
Right.
So perhaps just radio chatter that came through.
It was mostly radio chatter. You could tell that it was bits and pieces of songs. It wasn't even hardly any speech, any just normal speech patterns. It was all music. So, yeah, I was kind of surprised. There wasn't really much at all.
And what about when you all did that spirit box session just now? Did you seem to pick up anything relevant at first glance?
We had 2 channels running, but we really didn't hear much coming through. We didn't have any visible communication back with us that we could hear with our ears. So if we got anything at all, it's on the recorders.
All right, so we'll take a listen to those recorders, go in and hit it with another spirit box session, or perhaps if the circumstances are right, we can do an EVP session.
Yeah.
But the only problem with doing an EVP session at a place like this is he has tenants upstairs. And if we pick up a stray noise on that recorder or a voice, even a voice, without them being monitored, we can't say with 100% certainty that we got a spirit response.
Yeah.
So that's why we're
Yeah.
primarily going with
They're
the...
way too loud.
Are they?
Yeah.
We had on 1 or 2 occasions say people talking in the background.
So that's why we're
Yeah.
primarily going with the spirit box, because
Yeah.
there are people in the house.
We
so.
could take in the REM pod and see if there's any possible,
Absolutely.
EVP
activity with
in
that.
there.
Yeah.
All right, so we're here in the den, and what we're going to do is we have the REM pod down here on the floor. We brought the thermal pad from the back room down here as well. There were no imprints on the thermal pad. We have Linda set up with the spirit box. She's going to be listening through the headphones to see if she can get any responses. I think what we want to do for this one is perhaps turn out the lights, not to make it creepy, but because that's what they report. When the activity happens, a lot of times it is at night when he's asleep. So we're going to try to kind of replicate that environment for the sake of this spirit box session. All right, I'm Jeff,
I'm Tanya.
and that's Linda in the chair. We'd like to know if there's anybody else here with us. If there is, could you please tell Linda your name? We also have this device set up in the middle of the floor here. And if you come near it, it may light up and let us know that you're here. Can you come near that device for us?
Wait.
Did something hurt you? If so, what was it? What was it that hurt you? Were you ill at any point? Is there any object in this room that you're attached to? An object that perhaps holds some kind of sentiment? Is there an object that once belonged to you? If so, which object is it? Where are you from?
Is there anyone in the home that you're trying to get a message to? We understand that you reach out and touch a certain person in this home. Could you tell us that person's name? The REM pod sitting in the middle of the floor here has a red light on it right now. If you get near the REM pod, the lights will turn a different color the closer you get. It's not going to cause you any harm. You can just let us know you're in the room with us. Could you reach out and touch that REM pod sitting in the middle of this room? We'd like to know your name if you'd like to share that with us. Could you tell us your name? Tell us how many of you are in this home besides yourself. Is there something that draws you to the back bedroom here? Could you tell us what that would be? If you're in this room with us, could you reach out and touch that pad?
We're going to go ahead and cut the spirit box session. Ran it for about 10 minutes. Not really anything that seemed to come through. So, did you hear anything through the headphones at all that seemed...
Nothing that seemed relevant.
No.
Again, it was a lot of songs, bits and pieces of songs. More speech, regular speech than there was last time we did this, but still nothing that sounded like it could have been relevant, and a lot of it I really couldn't understand.
Right. But nonetheless, just in case we miss something, we'll go outside, listen to it. And we're going to see Will's out there reviewing the recordings from the last two sessions. So we're going to see if he picked up anything interesting on those recordings. So we're going to have two people go in and do another spirit box session in that back bedroom. As it seems, as of now, that's where the only possible responses came from. So we're going to go in, try again, back there. Gave it a little more time, see what happens.
I'm going to go ahead and set this recorder down right here. So what I'd like for you to do is touch this pad for me. I want to be able to see your handprint.
first time I even seen that.
I know you're in here.
Reach up and touch one of the devices and make the green light turn as red as possible over there on the bed. Device won't hurt you. You'll just let us know you're in here with us.
I'm not trying to frustrate you, but this room has felt different since the first time we walked into it. So, please talk to us.
Would you let us know your name now?
You only have about 3 more minutes before we leave. This is your last chance to let us know. Tell us anything.
Is there anything going on with this mirror? Did you touch my hair?
Do you know any of our names?
What is your husband's name?
Got a mirror. Can you do something with the mirror?
We're going to go inside at this point and we're going to hit the garage. When Linda did the initial walkthrough, she kind of felt that something might be attached to the car that's parked in there. It seems like a classic car, some kind of a Stingray perhaps, and she mentioned that a lot of times someone will have a strong attachment to a vehicle like that. It could have been very special to someone. So we're going to go into the garage, see what we can pick up. So yeah, one thing to note, we do have the electrical box over here. And it is believed that spirits can feed off of electromagnetic fields. So perhaps any field that this electric box is giving off will give it what it needs to manifest. But once again, that's just a theory. Got the recorder going, the REM pod, and for this one, let's kill the lights.
Okay.
It's that one there, and then there's a switch over there on the wall.
Vegan.
Is there anybody else here with us right now? If so, could you tell us your name, please? Do you know what kind of car this is? If you're here, can you come near this device with the red light on it? It may let us know that you're near us.
Earlier you said you don't want it. What do you not want?
Do you know who owns this car right now? What's the name of the person who owns it? We are in a workshop. Whose tools are these? I see a drill press and a grinder. Somebody work on cars out here?
Do you know the year this car was made? I know it's an antique.
Welcome to the evidence room. We're going to talk a little bit about this investigation down there in Virginia Beach. And I have to say, a lot of times, these investigations, they're not like what they show on TV.
Right.
It seems like every time, or I don't watch a lot of the shows anymore, to be honest.
Yeah.
But it seems like a lot of times when they would go to these locations, they'd always walk away with evidence. And that's really just not the case.
No.
Now, what are some of the reasons for this? There's multiple reasons. When we go into an investigation, we don't do anything to summon any spirits forward.
Right.
We go in there to try to detect any spirits that may be there to give them a means to communicate. But even these homeowners will tell you the activity doesn't occur every single night.
Yeah, that's right. Oftentimes we are there for only a fraction of the time, where these people are sometimes there all the time. In the case of this gentleman, he's retired, he's home all the time. And his chances of experiencing activity are far greater than ours are.
Absolutely. And there's also the possibility that sometimes on an investigation, there's new people coming into the house, people that aren't usually there. And these spirits, these entities, depending on what they are, who they are, may shy away, may not be willing to communicate with strangers.
That's right.
They may even be afraid of some of our devices or curious and not really ready to come forward. So in a case like this, we typically set up a return investigation. But before we go into that, the reason for having people in the house, a lot of times you'll hear people say, when you go and do an investigation, you have to have the homeowners leave, you have to have the place completely cordoned off and quiet.
Right.
That's not the case. It's really not the case. A lot of times, these reports seem to indicate that the spirit is attached to a specific person in the house.
Right.
The spirit may only appear around a specific person. So what we do is we try to recreate that scene. We want everyone in that house that is there when the activity occurs. This brings up the question of EVP sessions, though.
Yes.
Because a lot of times you will get some chatter in the background. You will have people talking. What we do is we tag this chatter.
Right. Right. We not only do we tag it, but we can also detect usually when something is spoken by somebody in a different part of the house. After you've done audio analysis for many years, you start to hear things that sound a little bit different than what the normal chatter is in the house. And if everybody's chattering or the TV's on in another part of the house, then you can usually hear when something comes through that sounds a little bit different.
Right. And if the EVP is not a direct answer to our question,
Yeah, we throw it out.
that's also another thing that we would probably throw out.
Right.
So we do keep track of who's talking, who's in the house, and where any possible noise contamination is coming from. The initial walkthrough, when we get there, we do this method where I go in and I interview the client. I get all the details of the haunting, and then I come out to the team and they go and walk through the place.
Right.
Now, nobody on the team is a psychic, but this is just to get their first impression, for them to record the first thing that comes to mind.
Absolutely.
So where do these feelings, when you walk through these houses, typically come from?
It's, you know, I know what a lot of psychics would say, and like you said, we're not psychics. We don't claim to be psychics, but these are sort of just impressions or feelings that we get. You know, sometimes it comes in the sense of a feeling. Sometimes it's maybe a picture that flashes up in your mind's eye. And there's, you know, of course, no basis for this, no evidence for this until we get to the investigation portion of it and determine if there is some evidence that can back this up.
Absolutely. And sometimes it has been pretty spot on. Other times,
Not
it's
so
just been
much.
kind of random.
Right.
For example, when Linda went through this one, she talked about perhaps it could be attached to the land.
Yes.
That is a possibility. But given the circumstances that this guy has lived there since the 70s, and this activity only started about a year or two ago, would probably give an indication that it is a passing spirit. Now, though we didn't get any evidence or any substantial evidence during the course of the investigation, that does not mean it's not haunted.
Right.
It doesn't mean the person isn't credible, because there are a lot of times, like I said, when the activity just isn't occurring.
Yeah,
it
that's
really
right.
isn't. So it happened to be one of those nights. But I will say, when we do a case like this, we tend to do a follow-up investigation to go
Right.
back, hit it on a different night, try a few different methods. But in this case, it didn't happen.
Yeah.
We were contacted by the clients, and they said that several months ago, a woman in a coat actually appeared to the man and walked out of the house. And ever since then, they hadn't had any activity. Nothing else has happened since then. So this has been a couple months
Right.
with no activity. It was almost like this lady appeared to say bye and leave.
Yeah.
What could be the reason for that?
The first thing that comes to mind for me is that perhaps there was something that occurred that we don't know about after we had left the investigation. Something in that time period that gave this spirit some sort of finality. I know when I was there, I felt like maybe there was a woman that was angry there. Who knows whether maybe she found some reason not to be angry anymore and decided that her job was done.
That's a good possibility, and we could go on and on about the impossibilities. So they talked about how there were a lot of secondhand items, antiques that were brought into the house. If a spirit came in with one of these antiques, perhaps the spirit didn't stay attached to it.
Right.
Once the antique or the piece of furniture or whatever the item was got moved to a different location, the spirit's stay was only temporary.
Right. There were also tenants, as I recall, in the house as well. Tenants sometimes move out, so it could be that the spirit was attached to one of the tenants. We didn't realize it, but the tenant moved out and the spirit went with it.
That could very well be. But thank you for joining us for this edition of Virginia Paranormal Case Files. There's much more to see in the dark.